Hi, good morning. This is Daron Kornbluth from Mosaica, and with me is a special guest, Mrs. Ilana Kendal, who many of you may recognize from H.com or from her Mosaica book, Choosing Up, which came out year ago?
December 2019.
Ah, okay, very good.
If you
Yeah,
can remember, back before the world shifted.
exactly, pre-Corona world. It's a beautiful book. So I wanted our friends online to just know who's the person behind the book. So can you tell us the genesis? Like, where did this book suddenly come from? Why Choosing Up, and what do you do?
So, like, how long do we have? How far back in my history do I go?
The social media people tell me that our interview should be roughly 5 to 7 minutes. So I can't even welcome you in that long, but let's say 10, 15.
Okay, I'll give you the shortened version with the highlights. How's that?
Great.
So really the genesis of the book goes way, way back. When I was a little girl, whenever I would be struggling with something or I'd be having a hard time, my mother would say to me, someday, Ilana, this will be in your book. So that was really the framework that launched me into a life where struggle and challenge and the really day-to-day experiences, as well as those big sort of marquee level strife that we experience, was potential story. And that was kind of the background noise in my life, that I was taught from a very young age that how I saw myself in a circumstance was going to define me much more than the circumstance itself. So, when the book came out, I said, Mom, here it is. Now, there are a few pieces in between. And so really the more recent piece is that about 8 years ago, I took a group of women to Israel on a trip. We came back, 18 women. I came back jet lagged, inspired, but I would be waking up early in the morning, as one does when they come back from North America. And after a few days, I opened up my laptop and I was wanting to still feel connected to this group. I wrote them an email, short little piece. I thought, I'll take something seemingly mundane from my life and I'll share that story with them, and I'll kind of show where there's that plot twist and then what's revealed through that plot twist. Hit send on this email, and I guess everyone else was jet lagged because, flurry of responses right away. And so the following week, I found myself sitting down again, kitchen table, coffee to my right, laptop open, telling another story.
Wow.
And over the weeks, over the months, over the years, the mailing list grew, really through word of mouth. And this became for me really a spiritual practice. It was almost like my own personal, soul therapy, where I would look back in my week and I would reimagine some experience. I would look for really the choice points where I could find some meaning, where I could grow, where the hand of the Almighty was somehow communicating something to me. And it wasn't always communicating a sweet story that could be tied up in a bow, so much as this is where our place of personal choice is, and this is where we can define ourselves. And I'll tell you, I knew I was onto something when the responses that came back weren't just, this is lovely or this is inspiring, but, I can relate to this. Or I was going through something this week and I was struggling. And then I thought about what you do in your emails. And I thought, the story I was telling about my experience, well, maybe I could tell it a little bit differently. My absolute favorite is a woman who had been sharing the stories with her teenage daughter. And they were driving in a winter snowstorm here in Canada. And the mom and daughter actually got sort of spun out and ended up on the side of the road, sort of on an angle, and they're shaking, at a full stop, snow whipping at the windshield of the car. And she said, her teenage daughter turned to her, still shaking, and said, okay, Mom, what would Ilana do with one of her emails with this? And so that kind of feedback became really this conversation through these stories, through looking at the seemingly very mundane experiences that we can relate to, and pulling out not just lessons, not just God, but really where our personal choice and therefore power lies. So that's the collection of stories. And
Amazing.
Then we connected, and then the next chapter of the journey began, and now we're on a new chapter.
Wonderful. That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. We only have like a minute or two left, so maybe in your role as a storyteller and author and psychotherapist, many people are dealing with the challenge and the strife of corona, the stress beneath the physical worries, medical worries, health worries, world worries, financial worries, and lockdown, being stuck together in a house with people 24/7. Any short words of advice or thought that you can help us with?
So on one foot. So I really believe, and I say this in the book, that this idea of choosing up and making choices is a moment to moment practice. So it's not something that we sort of accomplish and now I'm all good, but really it's about the continual way that we show up moment to moment. So the first thing I would say is, if you're struggling, don't feel that you need to get any of this perfect. That really it's so much more about giving ourselves permission to live in the mess. Like, yes, this is going to be hard. I cannot tell you how this is going to become something shiny and that you're going to want to necessarily, stick in the photo album, but actually how we really live within some of that mess can actually be where we find the beauty. And I share that again in the book, right? It's the mess and it's the unexpected moments. And if we can get out of the framework of how we expect things to be and be a little bit surprised by our life, and like when everyone is screaming and the blueberries, as this happened to me yesterday, fall all over the floor, instead of sort of feeling like, oh no, just like drop to the floor, look at the blueberries, have a good laugh. And it's when we open ourselves to those experiences, and I know blueberries is maybe a mundane example, but big or small, that we find the magic, that we find the new way to look at what we're experiencing, and that's where the doors open.
Wonderful message. Thank you very much. Maybe with your permission, we can do this again sometime, and you can share your wisdom with the Mosaica family. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Anybody who's hasn't seen it yet, you will see it. That's Choosing Up by Mrs. Ilana Kendal. It's an amazing book. And have a wonderful day. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.